All right. So good morning, everyone. I'm so glad you could make it, and I hope you're staying cool, relatively cool in the heat that we've been experiencing. I'm glad to meet with you all today. And I wanted to mention that we have a Spanish interpreter here this morning. Her name is Carly. And so if you prefer Spanish, you can click on the Spanish channel. You should find it at the bottom in the bar of options at the bottom. Please come off mute and let me know if you have any issues
Hey,
accessing.
Emma, I just
Yeah,
sorry to interrupt you, but there's several emails that are coming in that people aren't able to get in. So I think they still did they get the new link? Because I just
I
got another email like a second ago. So
Yeah, I emailed that out to everyone as a BCC right before the meeting started, like probably 15-20 minutes before, because I didn't realize the link wasn't going to work until I tested it with Brandon. So let them know Dana, you got the email with the new link, correct? Or did you not?
Brandon forwarded it to me. So yeah, I'll just go ahead and reply to everybody because
I
there's
just did that. I just
Yeah,
replied
I'm on
to
it,
yeah.
Dana.
I
I'm
great.
replied
sorry
to
for the confusion. I
I
had to
just replied
change.
to everyone
Okay,
and
great.
added the link.
Thank you. I had to change the meeting ID in order to add our Spanish interpreter. So I do apologize for the confusion. I see a lot of people have been able to join, so I'm hoping with Dana's responses also that will help. Thank you, Dana, for helping with that.
Yeah, sorry to interrupt. Thanks, Emma.
Yeah, that's just fine. All right. So I am going to share my screen. Let's see. Okay. Can you see the webinar, the slideshow presentation screen? Could someone come off mute and let me know? Because it's hard to.
Negatory Batman.
No? Okay. Fun. Let's see. We will do just one moment. There we go. Let's try this one more time. There we go. Okay. Now can people see the screen?
Yes.
Okay,
Yes.
great. Okay, and I apparently forgot to change the name of or the month. So it is July, the ECEF webinar for July. So ignore the June right there. I'll change it before I send it out to everyone. So thank you for being here. And I know more people are probably still trying to join because of the confusion with the link. So I apologize about that part. So I just wanted to go briefly over the agenda. I need to remind myself to talk a little slower because I know we have the simultaneous interpretation. So I will try to talk a little bit slower than usual. So we did the welcome. Thank you for being here. I'm glad you're all here despite the crazy wild weather in your areas. And I wanted to get started with a little icebreaker, and we'll do it the same way as we have in the past, where you can put your responses in the chat, or if you would also like to come off mute and share, you could share with the group as well. So then we will move to evaluation updates from Alexis, and then we have a few ECEF updates. And then from 12 to 12:15, if you have questions, you can stay for further questions. All right. I'm going to move to the next slide. Oh, I'm going to put that in the chat again because I know more people are joining. So please make sure to sign in for the webinar so that we can track your attendance and just see if someone from each agency is able to attend. And if you're not, like I often receive emails from grantees who they say they have like an all staff something that conflicts one month, and that's okay. So if nobody from a certain team can attend one month, if you could just let me know ahead of time, that would be great. And for the icebreaker, the question today is, what have you been doing to stay cool in this heat? And it can be anything related to that you want to share. What have you been doing to stay cool in the heat? And I cannot see, let's see if I can pull up the chat. There we go. So staying hydrated, staying home and going on long walks in the late afternoon. Enjoying the air conditioner, throwing cans of frozen peas at chickens to keep them all cool. Yep, you got to think of the animals as well. Oh, getting lots of responses. Long Island iced teas. Watching the bear in my basement. Oh, the bear brings back lots of memories. I love that movie. Staying inside. Yep. I've been staying inside pretty much as well, except for letting the animals out. I'm admitting more folks as we go. All right. Does anyone want to come off mute and share something maybe fun that they've been doing to beat the heat? I don't know if anyone has gotten to visit lakes or the coast or anything like that during this heat wave. Just giving a second if anyone would like to share.
Hi, I'll share. My name
Hi.
is Minyana Bishop. I'm from Urco. Um, this heat is it's a lot. However, my kids and I just got back from Louisiana, and so the heat here, I want to tell everybody, is way better than over there. So,
Yeah.
but definitely staying indoors and staying hydrated for sure. And I tell my kids, do not touch the air. Leave the air on. If you are cold, go stand in the garage for a few minutes and then come back
Mhm.
in.
Yeah. Thank you for sharing, Minyana. All right. I'm just gonna put one more time the sign-in sheet in the chat. So people who just entered can click on the sign-in sheet to get signed in. And I will go ahead and go to the next slide. So Alexis, you are on, and I will mute myself.
Right. Emma, is it all right if I actually share my screen for the
Oh,
slide?
of course. Yeah,
That just might be a little bit more simpler.
definitely. I stopped sharing.
Okay, how does that look? Good. Can folks see that?
Yes.
Yes. Okay, awesome. Hi, everyone. Alexis from the CCF team. I'm here to introduce the child outcome tool. As Lorelai is out of the office, I'm going to be stepping in. Yeah, I'm happy to see you all here today. Um, so I'm going to be talking about the child outcome tool. Um, and just as kind of a reminder about why we also have this tool as well as the family tool that we use for the soft launch process is the legislature requires, outcomes for the evaluation both at the family level as well as the child level. So this child outcome tool is in response to that. And I first want to start with the co-design process, and it's actually very similar to what we did for the family tools. So a lot of these steps will look pretty similar. The
Hey, Alexis,
yeah,
I'm
go
sorry
ahead.
to interrupt. Can you, I have to remind myself too, but to um, make sure to speak at a little bit of a slower pace for the interpreter.
Yeah, of course.
Thank you.
Um, so the first step here was specifying domains of interest that we wanted to identify as important. So the ELG and our team met to do that. Keeping that in mind, we looked at some existing tools that are out there. And once we did that, we thought that it might be a better idea to create something unique for this evaluation. So the CCF team borrowed some items from these tools, and then we also drafted some new items for consideration by the ELG. Over the course of a few months, the ELG met with our team multiple times to discuss and adapt these questions. Based on those conversations, we made recommended edits and then approved a draft for pilot testing. So the pilot testing happened with families and staff from 4 organizations and 1 tribe. So a big thank you to BPI, Salem Kaiser, ERCO, Adelante Mujeres, and Warm Springs for being a part of that process. That, along with, we shared the draft to all ECEF grantees for review and feedback. And then we summarized the feedback that we got from those 2 processes, brought that back to the ELG for additional revisions and finalization of the tool. So what is the same or different about this child tool when comparing it to others that are currently out there? What's the same is that we do include typical school readiness domains, questions related to that, but also we hope that we change the wording so that they're asked in a more affirming way. We also, just like the family tools, ask the respondent to reflect on the growth in their program. What is different is that we include questions about cultural connection and learning, as well as asking questions about home language learning. There are also open-ended questions for staff and families to share their stories, provide context, and celebrate child strengths. In their own words, which was something that was identified as important both in this tool as well as the family tool. So we have about 5 open-ended questions for this child tool as well. So a little bit about how and when the data will be collected. So this tool is only for children aged 3 to 5, and that's due to the legislative focus on school readiness for the evaluation. Just like the family data, this child data and tool will only be used 1 time, and that's at program end or near program end. This is not meant to be a formal child assessment, so it should not replace other tools that you're currently using, like the ASQ. There are 2 versions of the tool. There is one for staff and one for families. So it can be completed either by teachers, the home visitors, parents, family, etc. And then noting that, the staff may actually find it easier to complete. So when I meet with each grantee and organization to discuss which, the processes for this official data collection, we will decide which version is best for that organization to use, whether it be the staff or the family version. So just like the family tool, the child tool can also be customized by each grantee. So there can be changes to wordings if it doesn't make sense for the organization or the culture. Questions can be skipped or deleted if they aren't a good fit culturally. And finally, you can add supplemental questions if there is any, programs that are interested in finding out answers to certain things. Again, I will be meeting with each of you, and in those meetings we can identify any adjustments that are needed, and then I can go ahead and make those changes onto a PDF version for each of you. Finally, we do have a list of about 5 language translations, 5 languages that this tool is currently being translated into. However, if through the course of our meetings there is a language that is needed that hasn't already been translated, you can let me know, and we can make sure that that is available for you. So there are stipends available for staff who may be interested in doing it. We find that we get higher quality translation this way. If that doesn't work for that for your organization, if there's a staff member, you can also go through traditional methods to get that translation. So talking a little bit about the timeline for the official data collection. Now through the end of 2024, it's going to be, all systems go for planning for this official data collection. Each grantee will meet with me or someone from the CCF team to customize the tools, talk about which one will be used, and put data collection processes and systems into place. This time around, both the family tools and the new child outcome tool will be used. So there will be a total of 3 tools being used. And all of them will be collected only once. And as I mentioned, that's near the program end, being April 2025. Due to this being the official data collection, we are hoping for there to be at least 60% participation from families and children. Always keeping in mind that, participation is voluntary. That is always something important to know for this process. From May to July of 2025, our team's going to be working on data analysis and report writing. And finally, in August of 2025, our team will submit a final report to the legislator and DELC on what we learned. So are there any questions about what I just went over before I walk through the draft tool? I'm going to share that and show you what it currently looks like. Yeah, any questions, please type in chat or unmute and that. All right, yeah, if anything else comes to mind as I go through the tool, please do let me know. So I'm going to share that now. Okay. Awesome. So this is what the tool currently looks like. I just got this graphically designed version of it earlier this week, so you all are getting a good little sneak preview at it. This is the first page of the child tool. As I mentioned, there's a home visitor and a family visitor version. So the main differences are going to lie in this introductory language as well as the open-ended question. So that's where you'll see the difference. First thing here is a reminder that this is for children ages 3 to 5. We ask the child's name, the child's age. In relation to the child's name, this is mostly here for, organizations to keep track of what families have completed and haven't completed it. So when this is turned into us, if you could please, Sharpie out the name, erase it, whatnot, just to make sure that that name isn't shared with us. So the introductory language here kind of starts introducing the tool, gives background to the families about kind of what the goal of the tool is. And then we start here with the open-ended questions. And then we move on to the scaled questions. This scale with the flower might look familiar to some of you if you've looked at the caregiver reflections tool. It's the same scale. Yeah, and again, we're focusing on how much growth you have seen in the child or have seen in each of the areas below. So it's focused on that growth here. The questions are divvied up into different areas of so families have an idea of what the question is getting at. And so the first area here is engagement and learning. First question being curiosity about and interest in program activities. Families will then have the choice between, strongly agreeing with that statement, to strongly disagreeing, picking an option. For this tool, we also added the doesn't apply option. And this option makes more sense for some questions than other questions. And I will explain that a little bit more further down in the tool. And there is also a already accelerated option to pick. And the ELG identified this as being important. If there are children that joined a program that were already at a high level, let's say they didn't, quote unquote, grow throughout the program because they were already at high level. So just making sure there was an option to reflect that for children. I'm going to go through each section and highlight 2 questions from each. If there's any, question you would like, additional explanation on, any question, please do, unmute and let me know. I'd be, happy to answer that. So another question example in the engagement and learning question is length of time they pay attention. The next section we have here is social and emotional development. So there are things such as waiting their turn and being able to say how they feel. There is a cultural connection section here, which is something that is unique that you don't mostly see in this type of tool. So these ask questions related to, knowing traditional stories, songs, and rhymes, and sense of pride in their home culture or language. There is a early literacy section here. This is what you will see most in most tools of this type, and is also where you can find where the doesn't apply option makes a little more sense. So we thought it was important to ask early literacy questions and related to English as well as home language. So for example, there is the learning letter names in home language as well as learning letter names in English. That was identified as important by the ELG because certain programs might focus solely on home language, and I working on that as well as or using English in that processes. So this is where that doesn't apply, might make more sense. So if a program's focus isn't really on learning letter names in English, that's when they can fill out the doesn't apply, and then using the strongly disagree to strongly agree regularly, filling it out for the home language. Then there is the early math section here. There's learning shapes, counting to 20. And finally, there is physical development area with questions such as, asking about the large motor skills as well as fine motor skills. And then we wrap it up again with two more open-ended questions, giving families, again, the chance to write about any context that feels important for staff for the evaluation to understand, as well as two questions here related to early intervention services, whether they have been referred and whether or not they are receiving those services. Are there any questions related to the tool specifically? Anything about the format, questions?
My question is, same thing, same question that Maida has in the chat, of when we're gonna receive the tools and when we can go over them with our teams.
Yeah. So right after this meeting, I am gonna update. So if you remember from the soft rollout, we created a folder for each organization that has the child tools, frequently asked questions, other helpful documents. I'm gonna upload this tool on that folder as well. And then I will email you all as reminders about that, where that is, where you can find that. So you'll have the tool in the next few days here to take a look at, share with your organization, talk about where you might want to make changes, etc. I do see your next question there, Maria. The final graphic version isn't available in Spanish just yet. As I mentioned, we just got this earlier this week. So it's just in English, but we do have like a Word version of the Spanish. So the tool is, quote unquote, like ready to see in Spanish. But as soon as this is finalized for the English version, we're going to make sure that works for the Spanish version as well. Okay. So just have one more slide on the presentation, talking about next steps. Okay, so yeah, I saw your question, Shauna, as well, about when you were asking folks to use this tool. And for the official data collection, that's going to be around April 2025. So that's going to be near the program end for the 24-25 program. Yeah, and starting now to the end of the year, we're going to work on starting those processes and getting that going. So yeah, next steps here. We're currently working on analyzing the soft rollout data that we received from you all with the interim report due to DELC late August, early September. Initial findings are looking very great. There's very high program ratings. You know, families are reporting very meaningful growth. And that's also being reflected in the rich qualitative data that we're getting from the written in comments from the feedback tool. You know, the report will have lots of powerful quotes in families' own words and languages that kind of just bolster the findings that we have from the tools. Here, as I mentioned already, I'm going to add the tool to the Google folder, and I will email you all with that link so where you can find the tool as well as the family tool. And then I'm going to start reaching out very soon here to you all to schedule time to check in about the new child tool, troubleshoot any challenges that might have come up during the soft rollout. Let's say if you have had low participation rates, what we can do to try to, you know, bolster that number, as well as just planning, you know, overall what that official data collection is going to look like in 2025. Yeah, so that's all that I have for you all today. Feel free to contact me if there are any other questions in the meantime. It's great to see you all. And yeah, if there's any other questions I can answer here before I hand it back over to Emma.
It looks like you got a question in the chat, Alexis. How can we contact you?
Yeah, email works great. I'll put that in the chat. I'll also include my Google Voice phone number if you prefer it.
Great, thank you, Alexis. Any other questions for Alexis? Okay, sounds like not. So I will share my screen again. Let's see. All right. There we go. All right, so the last part of the webinar today will just be going over some logistical things related to ECEF end of the year related things, and then a couple other updates that I have. So at the last webinar, I had shared that the budget reconciliation and the end of the year report were coming due on August 14th. And that the program service delivery calendar for this next year for 24-25 is due on the 1st of September. I have an update and shift for the first two components, so the budget reconciliation and the end of the year report, because we have not gotten the end of the year report into your hands yet. So we have been working to build one out, and it is finished. However, we're waiting for the Spanish translations to be done so that we can release the end of the year reports in both English and Spanish at the same time. So I am extending the due date. If you receive the documents and you still get them turned in by August 14th, that's great. But however many days after July 1st it takes us to get them to you, which I think we'll have it by the end of this week, possibly beginning of next week. But I will count the days from July 1st to the date it's sent out, and that's how many days you'll have in addition or added to the August 14th date. I hope that makes sense. It might be a little confusing, but when I send out the reports, I will let you know in that email what the revised extended due date is based on that date that I'm sending it out. Does anyone have any questions just about that date shift? I wanted to make sure there was flexibility because it's not fair to have something due at the same time that you don't have access to when you should have. So does anyone have questions?
I have a few questions. So,
Yeah.
the budget reconciliation and end of year report template, those will be sent to us when they are ready then, correct? That's the first question.
Yeah, so the end of the year report, yes, that will be sent out in a link to the actual report that you will complete. and it will also be sent as a PDF so that if you have various staff members who want to complete certain portions of the report, they can add it to the PDF, and then one person would take everything that's on the PDF and put it into the actual online form. And for the budget reconciliation, I think it's worth having Brandon talk about that piece again. We talked about it a bit at the last meeting, but there isn't a new template for that. I'll let Brandon explain.
Yeah,
If you don't
happy
mind.
to jump in. Thanks, Emma.
Yeah.
And so, Jackie, what we're going to do for our budget reconciliation is we're just going to grab the budget template off of the ECEF grantee dashboard. And what I can do too is I'll just go grab the link for that as well and throw it in the chat just in case anybody's not quite familiar with where that is. And for that, it's just going to be the actual totals of what has been spent up through June 30th at 11:59 p.m. So what that means is if you've drawn out $1,000, but you've only spent 500 and you still have 500 you haven't spent, you're only going to put that $500 in that category. And I'm available I'm available all this week and then all next week except for Monday. So if anybody wants to make a meeting and go over it, I'm happy to do that as well. And oh, beautiful. Look at Emma being ready with the slide. Wonderful. So on the next slide, you'll see my contact information and happy to walk through either via email, video meeting, or over the phone. I know a lot of y'all don't call much. I'm very much a phone talker, so don't hesitate if you are also a phone talker to reach out.
I just want to make sure, thank you, Brandon, for that explanation. Does that make sense for everyone, or do you have further questions, clarification around the budget reconciliation piece? I believe that's how it has been done in previous years, but since we're both new, I'm not 100% sure, but I think Dana is still on the call. I don't know if Dana, if you have anything to share about that, or if you were around when a budget reconciliation happened previously.
Yeah, I'm still here. So for Equity Fund, there hasn't been a budget reconciliation like this. We do have it in some of our other programs though. So we, like for Oregon Prenatal to Kindergarten, for instance, they did have a budget reconciliation that was due. And it's basically like the same idea. You take what you've budgeted against what you've actually spent. And so just like Brandon said, put those figures in the workbook, and it's basically just going to show like where you have spent, maybe if you're under in an area or over in another area, just to make sure things are on track. But I do want to also mention that it doesn't have to be like half of your spending must be done in 2023, 2024, because it's a biennial agreement. You can spend the funds like if you needed to do 40% in the first year and 60% in the second year, or vice versa, like it doesn't matter. So hope that helps.
Yeah, thanks for that addition, Dana. That's something I should probably mention and throw in there. So appreciate that.
That helps. That was one of the questions. So I'll send you an email, Brendan, to get access to that and make sure that we submit that report on time. The other question I had on the last slide, it was the calendar. Is there like a template you want to use, or the one that we've used in the past will be sufficient for the delivery calendar?
Yeah, so for the delivery calendar, the template is on the ECEF portal. It does have the older dates on them, and so you can either just update those dates, or I can send it out. Right after this meeting, there's a couple other things I'm gonna send out. And so I downloaded it and edited the dates. That's the only thing that changed. And so it's from instead of 23 to 24, the months will have like the next year after them when you break it down by month. So again, you can make those updates yourself, or you can use the one that I'll send out after this meeting. And that's another thing I wanted to just comment on, is that I have decided and talked to other people about this decision, that after this biennium ends, so after this year, I'm going to be changing the program service delivery calendar to be broken down, I believe, quarterly, instead of monthly, because monthly, to break it down by month, I feel like it's very tedious for grantees to be completing that information, when likely the goals and programmatic activities don't shift dramatically from month to month. So if we did it quarterly, it would minimize the amount of detail that needs to be included by month. And instead you could look at programs, functions and goals on a quarterly basis. That doesn't take place this year. For continuity, we wanted to use the same form, same month by month breakdown for this second year of the biennium, just so that it aligns. Does anyone have any questions on that part? That's kind of an update for the future. Okay. And if anyone feels strongly that you would like it to stay month by month, I think we will allow, like, if it makes sense for whatever reason and you want to do it month by month, you are more than welcome to continue breaking it down that way once we make the shift. But we want, since I think the majority of the feedback I've received is that it's a little bit tedious to complete month by month and there's a lot of just repetition, we'll make it the main option will be quarterly, and then if you choose to break it down by month, that would be up to each grantee. I'm just pausing in case anyone has questions. All right. I also, when I send an email after this meeting, I will be including the DELC photo release form. And I have gotten some questions about that, because many of you upload photos with your monthly reports. And I still am not as clear as I would like to be on whether we need a photo release for each person in the photos if you're just attaching them to reports, or if we need, my understanding was we only needed photo releases if we were going to be using and publicizing those photos in some way. So I have asked around and I got some different answers. So I'm still not positive. I'd say if you're sharing photos with the intent or thought that you would be happy to see them used in some sort of announcement or DELC publication, whether it's internally with grantees or externally, then I would say to cover your bases, to have photo releases signed for everyone, every participant that may appear in photos would be the best practice. And if we don't have the photo releases for each person in the pictures, we just wouldn't use them outside of our own personal viewing with your report that you submitted. Does anyone have questions about that piece? Okay, sounds like no questions there. And like I said, I will attach that document, the release form, in case you don't have that. The other piece I wanted to mention is that we've been working on some minor adjustments to the monthly reporting for grantees. And one change that I want to highlight is that for all of the program components, so parent education, parent-child interaction, and kindergarten transition, you will be able to report numbers for both parents and for children, because we realize that programs are structured differently depending on each agency. And we want to be sure to, in case your kindergarten transition program includes a parent component, which many of them do, we want to be able to record those numbers. And if you run a program that you only have children participating, then you would just put 0 for parents. But we wanted to be able to make sure we're capturing anyone and everyone that you're serving within each 3 of the program components. Does anyone have any questions on that update?
I have a clarifying question. I guess
Yeah.
to me, it seemed like that is how it's already set up. So what exactly is the difference?
Yeah, so there's one of the components. So I'm wondering, Dana, if you're still here, if you can help chime in, because I feel like you're more versed in it than I am.
I am still here, although I missed what the question was. Can you say it again?
Okay. I mentioned that we're in the revisions that we're doing for ECEF data collection, that we're making sure that we're asking for numbers for both parents and children for all 3 program components. So that in case they do have a parent participating in a program, or a child or children in a program, that we're incorporating all of that.
My question was that to me, it's been set up that way already. So I'm confused of what the difference is.
Hi, Kamisha. Yeah,
Okay.
so I can help with clarifying a little bit of that. So part of it is that it depends on which programming activities you're doing, because like parent-child interaction right now, for instance, you would count the number of parents and children served on the monthly program performance report. But for kindergarten transition, for instance, which I don't think you do kindergarten transition, that one, you only count children on the monthly program performance report. And so it's basically making, so all 3 of the programs that are a part of Equity Fund capture both parents and children, since that's part of what is filled out in the continuation survey, like back last spring. So like it's informing your goals. And so we also want to make sure that we're capturing that and the impact that programs are having on not just children, but also families. So I think it's because of one of the programs, just no, you didn't see that, we didn't collect it. And so it's nothing will change if your programs are just parent education and parent-child interaction, because you're right, we have been doing it that way.
Cool. That makes more sense. Thank you.
Yeah.
No problem.
Thank you, Dana. And thanks for your question, Kamisha. Okay. Any other questions related to that? Okay, so I wanted to share, I'll stop sharing my screen briefly, because I'm going to share a PDF version of the end of the year report, just to give you a glimpse of what you can expect that will be on there. And in case you have any questions, you can ask today. And then you can also, once I actually email the reports and the link to the online report to complete, you're welcome to reach out with questions then as well. So let me just make sure I'm going to share the correct item on my screen. Okay. Are you all seeing the PDF?
Yes.
Okay, great. Okay, so this is not what the online version will look like. This is a downloaded PDF version. So it's the report for the 2023-2024 ECEF program year. And we're not going to read through word by word, but I'm going to go through an overview. So the way the form will be hosted, you can save and return later. So I wanted to make sure you knew that would be an option, because if we're not doing it through Smartsheets, we're using a different system. And with Smartsheets, with our other like monthly reporting, you can't save and come back to it. But we wanted to make sure with the end of the year report that you could save, so you could work on it as you can and then save and revisit. So that's one piece I wanted to highlight. This part right here talks about materials you would want to gather before beginning the report. And there is one piece that is different than what is here. It's something we have to correct. So it's site information. So if you have various sites, I'll show you down below the information we're asking about those sites. And instead of the program service delivery calendar, we ask about the targeted numbers for children and families that are on the ECEF continuation grant survey. So you all submitted that. If you don't have it handy and you need to request it, you can let me know and I can download it and send it to you. But I'm hoping most of you have it saved somewhere, but we're happy to help and get it back in your hands if you don't. And then total number of children and parents served throughout the program year. So that's the general information you would want to have before you begin. So let me scroll down a bit. There we go. So it starts with grantee name, point of contact for the report. So even if multiple people contribute to the report, we're just asking for one main contact for who's actually going to be filling out the online version and clicking the submit button. So here we ask, how many sites do you provide ECEF services through? And so this form will show each of 7 sites listed out, but we just put 7 to capture hopefully the most sites that programs have. So if anyone operates more than 7 sites, please let us know and we'll edit it to add more sites. So site information, we ask for site name and site address, phone number, and let's see. Then we ask what the early learning hub, the nearest early learning hub is connected, and which ECEF programs does this site provide. And if at any point there's a question, just feel free to come off mute and ask me. Does this site provide transportation? Yes or no? And how many ECEF funded staff serve this site? The name of the site manager. And then if it's a licensed, or if it has a license or recorded number assigned by the Child Care Licensing Division, and you click yes, then you would put the number there. If you click no, that's totally fine. You don't have to add anything into that section. So that's what it asks about sites. I'll have to scroll through because all the different site numbers are listed out. So I'm going to scroll down. This is the same information 7 times. Go a little faster. All right. Right there. Then we come to staff information. So we ask for the total number of staff that it takes to run all of your ECEF programs. And then this section asks for the positions, anyone working or covered through your ECEF funding. So ECEF funded positions to complete the chart below, and it includes position, annual gross wage, FTE, did they receive benefits, highest education obtained, and race. And so I know that in your budget, there's already some of the fiscal and wage pieces or FTE components, but we're hoping to receive a little bit more information in this section about staff that are funded through ECEF. So we have a list that goes up to, we had it be very large just in case. So we have it go up to 40 staff, and you only have to submit for how many staff actually are funded through ECEF funding. Any questions on that section? Okay. Now we move on to the numbers served, and for this section you'll need to refer back to your continuation grant survey, which again, we can send that back to you if you don't have it saved somewhere. And I wanted to highlight, well, I'll highlight that in a moment. So the first question, did you offer tribal language revitalization component in your programming? And this is showing the different drop downs that there are. So if you click no, this drop down won't be there. And this question we thought was interesting to ask because every grantee put their targeted number of children and targeted number of families in their grant continuation survey. And we wanted to ask how, at the start of the fiscal year, how did you determine what those projected or targeted numbers would be? And so we're just curious, like what methods, what thinking was used to make those kind of goals or projected number of families. And there's no wrong answer, just information gathering. And I wanted to highlight here that for targeted, so it says targeted number of children, and this is straight from the continuation grant survey, and then targeted number of families. And with our monthly reporting that we collect, we've focused on children and parents. We haven't been saying children and families in terms of the numbers that we're asking for. And so moving forward, we would like to change that from families to parents, because a family encompasses like a family unit. So even if multiple members of that family were attending, it would still just count as one if we asked for families. But if we change it to parents, you would be projecting, there could be 2 parents in a household. And so it would change your projected numbers moving forward when we make that shift. So I just want to highlight that your targeted numbers from your grant continuation survey was children and families, and all our other questions are children and parents. So it would be individual parents, not a family unit, in terms of the questions that we're asking. And our directions are pretty clear to highlight specifically what we're asking and the difference. So if you scroll down here, we are using the same language from the grant continuation survey when we're asking for what your targeted numbers were. But then when we ask how many actual total you served in comparison to your targeted numbers, we're asking parents and not families. So even if you reached your targeted number exactly in the family section, but there were more parents because there might have been more than one parent in each family potentially that attended, then this number would be higher. So
can I ask a clarifying question?
yes.
Where you're referring to targeted number, or that it's the numbers that we had originally put in the application that of how many students we assumed we were going to be serving, and then on the right, that's how many were actually served.
Got
it.
Yeah. So, and the numbers from these first 2 columns, the targeted number of children and targeted number of families, those were in your continuation, ECEF continuation grant survey is the name of the document. And those numbers were also put into each individual grantee grant agreement. So you can also refer to your grant agreement to see what your targeted number of children and families were. So we're just asking for you to put those numbers that were already written and taken down in that section. And then we're asking for like the actual total numbers served last year.
And then Emma, I think for us, we, on our contract, this says children and parents already. It's separated that way, and it doesn't say families.
Okay.
Maybe that's something, maybe a question I can send you via email and we can.
Yeah.
figure it out.
Okay. Yeah, definitely. So because we had said for these numbers that it was coming from the ECEF continuation grant survey, the language in that specifically says children and families. So that's why we put it in here this way. But if you have the numbers somewhere else where you projected for children and parents, I mean, I think you're fine to just use those same numbers. We're not, yeah, I think it shouldn't change the information much, I don't believe. I just want to make sure it wasn't confusing that it's saying families here and then parents here. So yeah, if you have different information on your form or in your grant agreement, then please, yeah, let me know. But you are just welcome to put the number for children and parents, despite that saying families. We just didn't want to put parents here and then people realize that on their continuation grant survey that it says families and be thrown off by that. So you are good to put for your targeted numbers, whether it says families or parents, you can just put that number in there regardless.
Sounds good. Thank you.
Yeah. Any other questions about that piece before I move on? I know we're past 12, so if people have to jump off, that is okay. And I'm not reviewing chat at the moment. So if anyone has a question and you put it in the chat, please come off mute so you can ask me verbally. I'm just not checking it as I'm going.
I asked you before, I had some aunties and grandmas in place of parents. Do we just add as parents then?
Yeah, so that's something that I have I've been talking to colleagues about, and I really want to change our language moving forward to be more inclusive and say parents/caregivers. And so because it's already written in all of our grant documents that it's parents and children at this point, for this report, we didn't change to using parents/caregivers because we wanted it to align with how it's written everywhere else for this grant. But after this biennium ends, that's a shift that we're going to be making because I think it's important to have it explicitly clear that you can include other adults or significant people in a child's life who have been attending the programs. And when I did similar work, I also reported on parents/caregivers, and we could add like a nanny if they brought them, or a grandparent or an aunt. So yeah, that's a great question. Despite it saying parents, please include any other adults that participated in programming funded through ECEF. Does that answer your question?
Yes, thank you.
Okay.
Yeah, well, while we're talking language changes, if we could find different words for targeted, I think I would really appreciate that.
Okay. Yeah, thank you for that feedback. I think we had originally written it as projected number, but then what was written already in the previously made ECEF continuation grant survey, they had written it as targeted. So that's how it's in your grant agreement, I believe, and it's on that form. But that's great feedback, and I would definitely make that change moving forward. I like projected better than targeted as well. Does projected sound good to you, Jeffrey? Jeff?
Yes,
Yeah?
yeah,
Okay.
that sounds good. Yes, thank you.
Okay, great. All right. And then we ask, have you encountered barriers to reach your goals? So in case your numbers are lower than you had projected or hoped for, we're curious what barriers you may have encountered. If you click no, these questions will go away. If you click yes, then you can explain the barriers and ways you've tried to address them, and then what support you might need from DELC staff to reach those projected goals. Then moving down, we're close to the end. We ask, are you currently tracking how many children and parents are receiving services in 2 or more areas? And it's not a requirement to track that, but so we put, don't be concerned if you haven't been collecting this. It's information that's helpful for us to know in terms of knowing whether it's distinct families served in different program models or overlapping families. So just some questions to get more feedback on that. And we're not asking you to start tracking that at this point. We're just curious who might have already been tracking that information. And then, so those are the only number, like totals information we're asking. Then we get to the grantee feedback section. So these questions are in relation to our support that we've provided, and like the webinars, our awards management system, and yeah, kind of overall satisfaction questions. So to give us feedback on the work that we're doing and how we can do a better job and what is going well. So I'm just scrolling down quickly. You don't need to know what all those little questions are. You don't have to read through them all right now, but that's generally what this section is about, is just for feedback. It asks if you had claims rejected, and if it was clear why it was rejected. If so, we want to work out kinks with our awards management system. And then here are a couple open-ended questions at the end. What was the biggest advantage of being an ECEF grantee? What was the biggest challenge of being an ECEF grantee? And down here, would you like to share a success story or narrative that highlights the impact of your work within the community? And then any feedback related to our ECEF team, so myself and Brandon, and Dana as well, even though she's not technically, but she has helped provide additional support throughout our onboarding process. And then do you have any feedback related to your experience with ECEF as a grantee? And then lastly, we were asked by Lorelei and Alexis and the whole evaluation co-design team whether we could include some questions related to the evaluation process. And they had originally included very cute smiley faces for their scale because they're very conscientious about using like neat images instead of just like kind of the more generic headings that we often see. But unfortunately, with our system, we're not able to include images like that. So we had to get rid of the smiley faces and create kind of a more generic scale. But there are specific questions in here related to the evaluation co-design process. We won't read through them, but that's what the end of the survey or of the report includes, is a specific piece from the evaluation team. And that is all that's included on the report. Are there any questions? I'm going to stop sharing. And I know I've lost some folks already, but it's recorded so they can watch the ending. Okay.
Thank you for going over that. It's helpful to know what's coming.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, and I really apologize for the delay. We've been working hard to make it a good, solid report. And we don't want to release it in English before we have the version in Spanish available. So we're waiting on that piece.
Honestly, the timing is helpful with other reporting and things
Oh,
coming up.
good.
So your delay is our extension.
Oh, good. Okay.
Glad
Yeah.
to see another thumbs up too.
Good. Yeah. And I won't be editing, like doing amendments to edit the due dates in, because I think the due dates are in the grant agreements, but we just have that understanding, and I'll have it officially written in an email, what the extended date is. So it's only if you are going to submit it after the extended date that you would need to submit an extension request.
I think it's most helpful. Hi, everyone. I'm Marlo, SCI. I think it's most helpful I am a visual learner. It would have been like Charlie Brown, wah, 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 until I see the slides and the presentation. So thank you, Emma. That was so most gracious. Thank you.
Yeah, of course. I'm glad we had time to walk through it, and sorry it took us right to the end. The last piece for those who are still here, the RFA for the Birth to 5 literacy funds opened, and I know I sent out an email to everyone, and so I hope that you all got it. And the informational webinar for that application is today at 3. So it's a double webinar day. And I thought I would put the link to the meeting in the chat just in case people don't have it.
Will that be the only webinar available?
Yes, so there's only one. You can still email questions through tomorrow to Lori Nordleen. She's the single point of contact for the application. But the webinar will be recorded. So participants with these webinars are very official in the sense that they all have to be kind of run in the same way when we have an open application. So we aren't allowed to have actual live questions during the webinar. It's really like an informational presentation with no responses to questions in the chat and nobody coming off mute to ask questions. So it's recorded. And so if you miss it, it's completely fine if you miss it, because it will be posted onto the landing page where all the materials for the application are. So you won't miss your opportunity for questions because no one will be able to ask questions during the webinar anyways. So it's great if you can join the webinar, but you'll have the same access as everyone else to the information if you do miss it. Does that make sense?
Yeah, thank you very much for answering my question.
Yeah, of course.
Emma, is there any way you can send that to us via email?
Yeah. I think you should have received it, but it's possible with all the different emails that go out, it's possible I miss you. So I did just put the link to the webinar this afternoon in the chat, but I can still may make sure to, when this webinar ends, I can forward you the link that was sent out with the announcement of the application opening, just in case it missed you somehow.
Okay, that'd be great.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, of course.